Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Web of Spider-Man #1. This is part 1 of Kraven's Last Hunt. And before we get into it, just look at how awesome this cover is. You kind of get this Dutch angle, Spidey's in peril, and we get this gun just coming out of the foreground here. And then just all the sketching of the city in the background, Spidey here in the midground. Oh man, you do not get this type of quality anymore, man. This was a great book. Now, before we even jump into it, there are some things that I kind of want to reference in terms of the story itself. So, J.M. DeMatteis is the one who wrote this. And from what I understand, from what I looked up, this was originally like the idea of someone getting buried and pulling themselves out of a grave, etc., so forth. So, real quick, if you don't want any super spoilers on Kraven's Last Hunt, pause this review, go get the story, and read it, and we'll eventually go over the other 5. But anyway, this was originally pitched as a Wonder Man story, so from the Avengers. But it was turned down, so he tried 2 attempts with Batman, one with the Joker, one with Hugo Strange. Denied. So he came back, reworked it as a Spider-Man story, and Marvel accepted it. Now check this out. What DeMatteis did with this book eventually is what inspired the 1994 Legends of the Dark Knight Going Sane arc, which if you want to read that, that was issues number 65 through 68. Absolutely phenomenal story arc, also wrote by DeMatteis. So there's some backstory on what kind of birthed this awesome 6-part miniseries. So before we even talk about how gorgeous this artwork is, let's talk about who made The Coffin, Part 1. It's J.M. DeMatteis, as we said, Mike Zeck penciling, Bob McLeod doing the inking, which Bob McLeod was the one that started the artwork for New Mutants, Rick Parker lettering, Jackson, Sharon, and Zeke doing colors, Jim Skellecrup is editor, and Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief. The print date on this was October 1987. And just look at this, guys. Get The Coffin. I am Kraven. And just look at the way that Kraven is drenched in shadows, all the smoke, and then it's just all the line work within the midst of the inks for the shadows. Oh, guys. I miss seeing artwork regularly in comic books like this where it would just suck you in. You're just like, what's going on? So we see that Kraven's up and he's training, and he just says, I am Kraven, the beast. And you just see him taking out a panther with his bare hands. And then I think this is a gorilla. And while all this is happening, we get maybe a few dialogue boxes here and a few where it's like, my mind is rage and glory. My heart is fire and pride. My body is grace and power. I am Kravenoff. And then while the story's happening, we get this kind of these beats of this grave being dug. So, shh, shh. And it just helps add to what's going on. And so we get just some really in-depth thoughts of Kraven himself, so that you get to know the man instead of just a villain. Because you know how a lot of times villains can just be one-dimensional. We hear how, I cannot remember Kraven's first name. Is it Alexei? Alexei Kravenoff? God. Nikolai. No, it's not Nikolai. What's his name? Hold on a second. I am just not all here with the program. Oh, I can't remember his first name. Let me know down in the comments. It's one of those days. But anyway, it's just really well written. As you're going through it, it almost feels Shakespearean. And as you can see, there's not all these dialogue boxes bogging down the pace of the story. We get the paneling, the artwork's driving the plot, and then we see this coffin. He goes, I will die soon. I must die soon. And we see the Venom suit, but not yet. And you see him shed a tear. So it just gives you chills down your back because you're kind of wondering what's going on. And then we get a moment with Parker. This character named Joe Faces died, and this was shortly after Ned Leeds died as well. So there's a whole lot of references to death in this story. And not like in a goth way, like everything's dead and dark. No, it really makes people start to question their mortality. And Spider-Man is really feeling the weight of it. He's like, this character, this Joe Face is dead. Why should I care? He was just another street snitch, a too big thug. Sometimes I'd pump him for information. Other times I'd put him away. And now he's dead. So why should I care? And then we kind of get this juxtaposition because he goes, there's no Spider-Man. He's a mask, a myth, a lie. Oh, sure, it'd be great if putting on a costume could miraculously change the man underneath, but it can't. I'm not Spider-Man. I'm just Peter Parker. And so all these street thugs went out of their way to raise some money for the funeral for their friend. And Spider-Man's like, I'm not here to fight you. I just came to say goodbye. He says, and I guess I do care. So see, we're starting to see depth to each main character in this story. So we see how Alexei is driven from the honor and pride of his family and what the world has become. Peter Parker, again, yes, he's Spider-Man and he quips, but he's Peter Parker. He cares. He has sympathy. Every time something happens bad, Gwen Stacy, Captain Stacy, Ned Leeds, Joe Face, he takes it all upon himself, and he has a hard time dealing with it. He goes, yesterday Ned Leeds, now Joe Face, tomorrow Aunt May, Mary Jane, me. Funny, I'm out there facing death every day as Spider-Man, but I never really think about it. I guess I don't let myself. Do I think I'm somehow immune? So everyone's kind of questioning themselves and their sense of who they are. And then, again, look at this. We don't get paneling like this, where we just see this kind of metamorphosis or even like a prophecy going on. We see Kraven biting into these spiders. And Parker's just going, dream. It was only a dream. No, a nightmare. Cold and dark and wet and things. But while he's questioning what this nightmare was, we see Kraven biting into these spiders and it's tonight. So Peter goes out into the night. He's like, ever since Ned died, I've been really upset. Really, really upset. And like we kind of see this mental argument. So we get what he's talking about rationally, and so that's to be expected. That's normal. And seeing Joe Face tonight didn't help things. So why am I so sure that there's something out there, that something's waiting for me? Shunk, shunk, the grave gets deeper. And then, check this out. Remember how I said this kind of feels Shakespearean? Spider, spider burning bright in the force of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? And while that happening, Spider-Man gets hit by what is that, like a karate dart or something like that? I can't remember what they're called. But we get Kraven watching his prey running. Tonight I've widened my consciousness with herbs and roots. Tonight I've immersed myself in your being, eaten of your flesh. Tonight my mind has penetrated your essence. It feasts upon you like maggots feasting upon a corpse. Come to me. So we see that Kraven's trying to get into the mind of Spider-Man, but that's nigh impossible because even Kraven himself says that Spider-Man is not human. He said there's no way that a normal human being could take out a Kravinoff like Spider-Man has. So I don't want to give any more away. I just want to show a gunshot. We see the grave continuing to be dug. And the last thing I do want to show is it ends with that spider, spider burning bright in the forest of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? So if I'm not mistaken, that is kind of a rework of a poem by William Blake called The Tiger. But instead of it being tiger, they reworked it with spider. And it really works in this comic book. Now, obviously, every book like this cannot be poetic like that, because some people try to do it that don't have an understanding of kind of how to execute it properly, and it just falls flat. But DeMatteis here, oh my God. This book, like I've never read Kraven's Last Hunt, and today was the first time I've read, this was the first time I've ever read it. I've seen the covers, and I loved the covers. But just reading issue 1, I'm just like, this is not how I'm used to normally reading a Spider-Man comic. All the beats are in the artwork, because the artwork pushes the primary part of the plot. But then when DeMatteis lays actual words over, there's weight behind them. It's not just something where, like in modern comics where there'd be like 17 text boxes with dialogue boxes this long, and it just slows it down. Speaking of, in the new Spider-Man run, Nick Spencer did a kind of a follow-up story called Hunted. And he kind of tried to use some dialogue points from this original run, and it did not go over well. Like, it was okay. But, DeMatteis here said that he didn't see this going on beyond 6 issues, this original run, and that's why it's one of those classic, highly revered stories. As for Nick Spencer, it just felt like it kept going and going and going. And then we get like issue 20, then we get issue 20B, then 21, 21B. And that's what I'm talking about with modern comics, where instead of just trying to write a story, everything's an event, an event, an event, an event. And even then, he has an event. And it's running through Amazing Spider-Man, but you have to have all these follow-ups to see what's going on underneath everything. And it slows it down, and it's like, if you can't put it into your event, why bother? Why bother reading the event if we have to go search other books? You know what I mean? So here, this was a 6-part saga, all self-contained. And what I read is DeMatteis said that this could even been separate from the Spider-Man arc and could have been just like its own graphic novel, like The Killing Joke, for example. So guys, this series is something that you definitely want to read. This is great comic book and just storytelling at its finest, laid over some absolutely amazing artwork. So please, first and foremost, support your local comic shop and see if you can find the series, all the floppies, or the collected trade, because it has been reprinted. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. It helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little spider bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love to hear feedback down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.